Hi, students. Today we're going to have a lecture about ESG to help you to get ready for the certificate. I'm going to cover chapter 1 from a book called ESG Investing and Trading, Myth versus Fact. This is a book by me. I wrote this book, and this cover done by Katerina Mazatska. She's an author, an artist. ESG Investing and Trading, Myth versus Facts, Yes of Bonaparte. And who cares when this guy is Koffi Annan. The book is on Amazon. If you click here, you can find it. And here is the ESPN. You may be asked what Koffi Annan has to do with that. Koffi Annan is the General Secretary of United Nations, by the way, the 7th one. Koffi Annan said, I propose that you, the business leaders, and we, the United Nations, initiate a global compact of shared values and principles, which will give a human face to the global market. And that was his speech to the United Nations. I think it was in 2004, and he served during this period. And then there is something called the Global Compact, and there's a conference called in Davos, Who Cares Wins? Who Cares Wins? And it was in 2004, and connected the financial market to a changing world and by the United Nations and others. I'm going to go through the chapter 1, ESG from the genesis to the challenging future. I'm going to cover chapter 1, not chapter 2. That will help you. That will put you on a track to work in your toward your certificate in ESG. So the first chapter is ESG, the genesis. I'm going to go through the history of ESG and how Koffi Annan is the person who engineered the rise of ESG. So in chapter 1, I talked about what is that ESG, history and motivation, United Nations and Koffi Annan vision, PRI, principle for responsible investing and signature commitment, which is includes top institutional investments, maybe $2 trillion or more signed in this petition. ESG set of criteria that investors use to evaluate and assess how a company environmental, social, and governance performance will affect its financial performance. So ESG is environmental, sustainable, and governance. We want to have a more environmental, more sustainable, more governance, like governance, more hiring more minority, more women role in the company, and how that impact positively, greatly, the performance of the company. And that's the whole idea of ESG. Now, how the rating of ESG is simple. So there is a governance, environmental, and social, and they look, like for example, social, look to the labor, immigration, and other things like that. For environmental and governance. ESG motivation, I mentioned Koffi Annan was one of the people who came not late, in 2004-ish to the world, when it was some ideas back then, but he came and reignited everything. And the idea is a change of the focus of companies and the purpose of corporate, followed by a summit as a roundtable. Business roundtable, which is this, a group of chief executive officers, nearly 200 major companies from 1972. The roundtable released a statement recently that changed the purpose of corporate. Students, you have to understand why we have companies. Before, like a few years ago, before 2020 or 21 or 19, companies are just to make a profit, maximize your profit. That's the purpose of the company, to make profit, give it the profit to the investors. Now, recently, they changed the purpose of corporate, and they said the new envision idea of corporate cuts the age-old notion that they operate first and foremost to serve their shareholders and maximize the profit. So shareholders' value is no longer their main objective. Now, history of ESG started from 1800, and the practice of ESG started in 1960. And in Koffi Annan, 2004, he gave it a lot of support. Here is a great quick review of the history of ESG and the key stops. Now, here is a question. Here's something I want to explain it. In Europe, most of the money invested in ESG, 81% is in Europe, although Europe has a small portfolio related to the United States. Only 13% of ESG fund invested by US investors. But the US investment volume is like 5 or 6 times of Europe, but only 13%. And the reason is, I'll explain that in chapter 2. I'm not going to go through chapter 2, but it's in chapter 2. Is in America, we have a political division, Republican and Democrat. Republican view ESG is liberal things, and it's this way, be nice now. And Democrats think that this is important and link that to the global warming and other things. So you see, as a governor like DeSantis in Florida, banning investing in ESG funds, whereas in California and in Colorado, where I live, actually considering to invest in ESG. And here you can see equity ESG, bond ESG, and how, I mean, how was Europe ahead of us? And here's a key historical stops. I took that from Rachel Marsh, very nicely done graphic page or figure. And here is more history of ESG. ESG by generation, we observe that the millennials are more focused on ESG and more care about that. But also baby boomers show some interest in investing in ESG. Now I'm going to talk about Koffi Annan, the Paris Agreement, and Davos 2020. These are the 3 stops in ESG that we have to talk about. Koffi Annan vision, he was a 7th General Secretary of the United Nations, and he went to the NASDAQ and he talked about the PRI, Principal Responsible Investing. Koffi Annan has said that there exist needs for quality management in the global market to be successful with ESG principles and policies. He suggests that the quality management is lacking in many countries worldwide. Annan established the United Nations Global Compact in 2000. Koffi Annan's vision is that to inspire and the incorporation of environmental, social, and governance elements in the capital and financial market. So that's his vision. Always, when you have a vision, you go through challenges and this. And what Koffi Annan did, and it's in the book, but not here, I guess I did not cover it. He invited the top 70 to 80 fund managers in the world. One of them was BlackRock CEO. I think his name Fisher or something. And they asked him. He said, "We need to support investment that focus on ESG." And then they signed a petition. And since then, a lot of people signed this petition that they will invest in company with high ESG rating. And then there is a Paris Agreement, 2015. Obama was a president. Joe Biden, not Joe Biden. He signed he accepted the Paris Agreement. Donald Trump walked away from the accord. He said, "Why should I follow this environmental things, climate change, and when I don't believe in this stuff?" And then in 2020, we have a Davos that actually planted the principle of ESG and responsible investment. And you can read more about this. The 20 large global firms in the IPS there is an obligation to establish to stakeholders the forward-looking methodology in establishing long-term value. Now, here are the 6 principles that the United Nations and Koffi Annan focus on: incorporating ESG issues into investment, active ownership, incorporate and disclose on ESG issues, We'll promote acceptance and implementation of principle within the investment industry, and we will each report on our activities and progress toward implementing the principle. And this is a statement. So there is a statement. If you are an investor and you want to commit to ESG, United Nations offer you a statement. This is a statement. In the bottom, you have to sign it, and then you'll be one of those people in the world that adopt the ESG initiative. So here's the explanation for each principle. If you want to read it, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, here's a question, and I wanted to answer this question in Canvas, in this assignment. What is ESG? What is the oil and gas companies toward ESG? How these companies think? I'm not asking you a lot. I just go and go some Google and answer this question. And what is key development ESG during the... So I have this in the slides also. I explained that in the slides. I talked about that too. I haven't talked about religious yet, but you can do some Google research or chat GPT. You can do. This is 6 principles. What are these 6 principles? Quickly list them. Explain one of these principles and what continent ESG is the most popular. I think I talked about that. Now I'm just going to go to outline of chapter 2. I'm not going to go chapter 2, but just the outline. ESG, the future, how I see in my book, or people see ESG as the future. And that's the reason I want you to have a certificate, so you will be updated. And if opportunities in this business arise, or if the company you work in want to invest in ESG and want to know a little bit about this topic, so you'll be the lead for the company. ESG and political division, there's a political division in the United States. Oil and gas companies' view about ESG and the religion perspective, and greenwashing. That's in chapter 2. I put all of that stuff. And that's the end. So you have chapter 1, you have questions. This is some idea what you do in chapter 2. If you buy my book, you read that. But the key for me is to prepare you for the certificate. There are 2 types of certificate in ESG, one by the CFA and one by Bloomberg. And I have the Bloomberg certificate. You can see my name here. I don't have the CFA certificate. The Bloomberg was enough for me. The CFA, here are the structure, 9 chapters, introduction to ESG, the ESG market, and then engagement and this, and ESG integrated portfolios construction. This certificate, you have to buy a book. It's about $95 a book, and you read about it, and there is 100 questions. You have to read the question and try to answer all of them, and then go to the CFA and take the exam and pass it. Now I'm going to go through Bloomberg certificate. This is the one that you will do. An introduction to ESG and sustainable finance, researching and adopting ESG, negative inclusion screening, ESG integration, equities and fixed income like bond and stocks, corporate governance and shareholders. These are the key section in the Bloomberg if you take it certificate. And it's a class assignment. Now I'm going to do for you a comparison between a Bloomberg and CFA. CFA more for academics, more for professors or people in that business that care about rigorous and things. Bloomberg is more for practitioners, people who work in a daily basis about this stuff. The CFA more prestigious actually and more around the world than this one. So basically I cover for you the lecture. All what I want you to do is to watch this video and then try to answer this question about chapter 1, and I'm happy to label this in yellow or light black so you didn't have to answer it. I did not cover it, but if you want to do some extra work and answer it, that's fine with me. Thank you so much, students. That's I just laid some ideas about ESG. What is it? The history of ESG, who came up with the idea, but then you have to go and take the certificate via Bloomberg and try to get that under your belt, ESG certificate. Post that in LinkedIn. When you get the certificate in Bloomberg, they ask you, do you want to post in LinkedIn? Say yes, click on that, post it there. I will give you congratulations also if you're in my network, and that will give you some visibility around the world, because I think couple $100 billion of ESG investing is coming in the United States. So you will be in a very good situation that people need your skills. Thank you so much, and happy lecture. Thank you.